All right, good day, everybody. Welcome to episode 40 of Reach for the Firefighter Badge. I'm Steve Prziborowski, and I'm here to talk more about the firefighter oral interview process. So in the previous episode, episode 39, we talked about what to expect in a basic fire department oral interview. Now, this episode, we're going to discuss the most commonly asked questions, part one. We'll sort of introduce you to the different types of questions to be asked. And as we mentioned in episode 39, there are no trick questions. So these are pretty much, I would hope, easy softball questions. So let's go. All right, as a reminder, my two websites, code3firetraining.com and chabotfire.com, have lots of great free information on there for anyone across the country, regardless of where you want to work or what type of department you want to serve at. So lots of good stuff. Feel free to check the information out. Also, these webinars are based on two of the three books I've had published, Reach for the Firefighter Badge and the Future Firefighters Preparation Guide, both available off my websites previously mentioned. So what are some most common questions that you may get asked? Obviously, the one at the bottom, what do you know about our fire department, our city? So we'll talk about that in a second, but I want to first talk about the opening statement. The opening statement is not commonly asked. Some departments don't go into an opening statement. You know, an opening statement is typically how have you prepared for the position? Education, training, experience, knowledge, skills, abilities. Tell us about yourself. You know, in one of the future episodes, I'm going to focus specifically on the opening statement, but just like not every department allowed the oral board raters to have resumes and applications, or you to bring resumes, not every department starts out the first question with how have you prepared for the position or tell us about yourself. But if they do, it's an icebreaker that's there to really go over your key points on your resume, your application, and so forth. Like I said, we'll spend a lot more time in a future episode, but for right now, that may be your first question. Second question, and again, in no specific order, you may get asked, why do you want to be a firefighter? Now, a lot of people say to help people, to give back, to serve my community. All those are good things. Nothing wrong with that, but those are all 70% answers. They're passing. You got to be unique about that. My best way to tell people to be unique is don't tell us you want to help people, because every human being should want to help people, to give back, to be nice, to serve their community. That should be a human trait. How about this? Why do you want to be a firefighter? Think of it this way, especially if you're taking the time to listen to my babble, especially on this episode, something obviously makes you want this career or this job, or even just to be a volunteer bad enough. Obviously, I mean, to put up with me, that takes a lot, and I appreciate it. Seriously, I mean that sincerely, but you've put some sweat, equity, some time, some energy into becoming a firefighter, and so something had to have gotten you want to do that. Maybe it was a personal family member or friend of the family. Maybe it was an experience. Maybe it was a movie. Maybe it was a TV show. Something happened that made you want to be a firefighter. And I think that's the key to sell the oral board, because when they're asking that question and they hear for the 20th time, I want to help people and give back, it's like, oh my God, just put me to sleep here. And you just sound like everybody else. Those are clone answers. They're not failing. They're just clone answers that don't get you the job, versus those people that can be unique and come from the heart. Because I bet you what got you to be a firefighter or want to be a firefighter is different from the next person, different from the other next person, different from everybody else. So that's where it comes to good quality personalization and being unique. And again, and then there's some people that say, well, I want to fight fire and save lives. Well, do your homework. That shows you did not do your homework, because the average firefighter runs probably 5% of their calls or less as fires. And in some departments, 1 or 2% actual fires. In my department, fires are less than 4%. That means a fire call, meaning someone says something's on fire, but by the time we get there, it's about 1% of actual fires. So if you want to come and fight fire, there's many departments around the country, even the big ones, that don't see a lot of fire on a daily basis, mostly medical calls. And as for saving lives, very few firefighters, if any, ever get to grab someone from the clutches of death, pulling up to the fire scene and grabbing that baby that's tossed from the second floor because the house is on fire. You see those, but they're rare. So if you're getting into it to fight fire, save lives, you're going to be disappointed, seriously, because most firefighters don't do that. Again, even the big cities run mostly medical calls, and most of the medical calls are not critical, life-threatening emergencies. We do a lot of life-saving indirectly, I think, and I hope, between fire prevention, public education, between other community risk reduction activities, between, with all, I mean, lots of similar stuff like that. I hope we're doing a good job of preventing bad things from happening. But again, actual true saving lives, very slim. Now, another thing that people say is, well, I want to do it for the 10 days a month and the, you know, wages, the great pay, great benefits, and a pension plan. Well, if you're only doing this to become, if you're only becoming a firefighter for the wages, benefits, or working conditions, you're going to be disappointed, because wages can change, good or bad. Pensions are sort of going away in many departments because they're very expensive. You know, everything can change, especially with the economy. And right now, here we are in an economy that's supposedly worse than the Great Depression, or similar to the Great Depression of 1929, and even worse than the economic downfall or downturn that we hit from 2008 to 2011. So money's tight everywhere. Cities are not getting the revenues that they used to get because of the pandemic and for other reasons right now, because there's no sales tax coming in with the businesses closed. Property taxes are even challenging, and that's usually the primary revenue sources for most communities. So I'm not saying those are bad things, but to have something from the heart that got you to listen to this and to focus on becoming a firefighter, because it's going to be unique, and that's how you stand out in a positive way. You may get asked a question of why here, why us? You know, again, have a good answer. And I know a lot of candidates go, well, Steve, I'm testing with, say, whatever department. It's not my dream department, but you know, it's a job, but I don't know if I want to take it. What do you mean you don't know if you take it? Take the damn job. Well, I don't want to work there. How do you know you don't want to work there? You don't know you want to work there until you're there. Well, my buddy works there. He says it's a pretty screwed up place. That's his opinion or her opinion. Every department can be screwed up depending on who you talk to. Just like every department can be awesome depending on who you talk to. There's people that are miserable, there's people that are happy in every line of work. Try to get a flavor. Now, if the majority of people that you talk to says the place sucks and it's dangerous and it's a sinking ship, well, maybe think twice. But you know what? Still take the job, because even if you get laid off, you're still a firefighter, and now you have experience for the resume, and now you may be able to get a leg up on other candidates that were never laid off. I know it sucks to have to go through that, but have a good reason. And you know what? Don't just do it because it's a job. Do it for the passion and the love and the enthusiasm of the industry, the fire service industry as a whole. You know, be able to talk about your 3 greatest strengths. Don't just tell me about your greatest strengths. Give me an example of each, meaning support it, back it up with a fact. And then number 3, besides telling me about the strength, backing it up and supporting it, tie it into the position, meaning dependability is one of my greatest strengths. Here's a reason why. And then lastly, I think it's critical for a firefighter to be dependable, because everybody depends on me. The community I'm fortunate to serve, my company, my crew, the entire department, the shift, the public, blah, blah, blah. Tie it in. So greatest strengths are critical. Be able to have an answer, because you're going to get asked those questions. Now, those are the easy ones. The tough one is the weakness. Have at least one greatest weakness, ideally up to 3. More importantly, don't just tell us it's a weakness. Be able to say why, and be able to say what you're doing to improve that weakness. So we all have weaknesses. Hopefully they're not deal breaker weaknesses, as I've talked about in other episodes, meaning, yeah, I'm an alcoholic right now, but I'm recovering right now. I'm in the 7th step of my 12-step program. And I don't mean to make fun of anybody is right now. I don't take it that way, but be careful of the weakness you use. There is no wrong weakness, just like there's no wrong strength or right strength. Well, there is some wrong weaknesses, I guess. Like I said, if you come in saying you're an alcoholic or you're a drug abuser or you got other issues, maybe that's won't pass on you. But think about this. Maybe you say you've got poor listening skills. Well, a firefighter needs to listen. They're going to get direction on the fly at the fire ground, at the firehouse. So pick your weakness wisely. I used to get pissed when I was in your shoes that my instructors and other firefighters would never tell me what the best weakness is, because I would ask as many as possible. Strengths were easy because we can all name strengths. I'm like, what's the best weakness to use? And then finally some wise firefighter goes, Steve, if I tell you, that means I'm telling everybody else, and then the oral board's going to hear your weakness as they are hearing from every other candidate, and you all sound the same. You got to be unique. Okay, I get it. But you got to come up with a good weakness. And then the last question that we touched on first was, what do you know about our fire department or your city? I'm going to talk more in some of the upcoming episodes about how to do your research, but you got to do your homework. You got to do your research on the department you're applying for, and then the jurisdiction, you know, whether it's a city department, a county department, a special district, state department, a federal fire department, different types, a private fire department. Do your homework. I mean, I had a candidate reach out recently saying, he was testing for a department, and he goes, I'm not really sure why I want to work for that department. So what should I do, chief? I go, visit firehouses. And he's like, visit firehouses? I don't have time for that. I go, you don't have time not to do it. And I go, visit firehouses. That's the one weakness, I think, of a lot of candidates. They don't take the time to do the research or visit firehouses. I go, talk to the firefighters for that department and start asking them, what do you like about this department? What do you dislike about the department? What suggestions do you have for me? What do I expect in the process? Questions, whatever. And he's like, well, I go, so if you hear a lot of firefighters in that one department saying they like their department because of these reasons, that's probably a good common reason that you could maybe use. And then you say, that's not just coming from me, but when I visited a number of your firehouses, that seemed to be the common theme amongst a lot of your personnel. Now you just told them that you're visiting firehouses, which is a good thing, because they want to hear that. They won't ask you, have you visited firehouses, but they want to hear that. So you got to research, you got to know some things. You may get asked, what's the most important service a fire department provides? And sort of I touched on earlier, if you say fight fires, save lives, I know there's no wrong answer, no right answer, but to me, if you say fight fire and save lives, you're probably uninformed and you haven't done your homework, especially if you look at the statistics of call volumes that fire departments run on. Well, if our calls are 80% EMS, one could argue that maybe fighting fire is not the most important service, especially if it's 3%, 4% of what we do. But you're called the fire department, Steve. That's what your patch says. That's what your badge say. That's what the rigs say. That's what the firehouse says. Yeah, we are the fire department. But it's more than that. Some departments call themselves fire and emergency services. Some say fire rescue and emergency services. But because we're such a traditional organization around the country, it's hard to change the name. I mean, in some ways, fire department is false advertising, because I think a lot of people don't realize that we do more than that. And that's our fault for not educating people enough. But God forbid you're the fire chief that actually says, you know what, we're going to better reflect our community and the statistics and call ourselves fire and emergency life safety services. Good Lord, someone's going to probably vote that fire chief out and want them fired. Seriously, that's how tough traditions are to change. But again, we're our own worst enemy sometimes, and it's false advertising. So when times are tough and cities are looking at budget cuts, they see the name fire department. The average person thinks that's all we do. They don't realize we run medical calls. We do other things typically. So that's our job that we need to do better at. So there is no important service in my opinion, but you better be able to do your homework and more importantly, support the why of it. Because if you think about it, most oral boards don't have in front of them, they'll have the question, but they don't have usually good answers or correct answers because there are no correct answers. So they leave you some latitude, but what you're really getting graded on is your thought process. So I think that's the key is it's not really what you say as much as how you support it, how you justify it. And I'll use an example. When you learn fire behavior and strategy and tactics and basically how to put a fire out, you learn there's many ways to fight fire. I'll give you an example. Let's say your fire engine pulls up to a typical house. A typical house may have a garage in front, a front door. There's usually a back door or a side door. So there's usually 2 doors into the house, maybe a third if there's one to the garage. There's obviously multiple windows around the typical residence. There's also the garage door. You pull up to a house on fire with maybe one of the rooms, kitchen, maybe bathroom, bedroom on fire. You may get asked the question, so you pull up to the structure fire, 2 in the afternoon, which way are you going to take the hose line in, meaning which entry? Are you going to take it through a door, through a window, garage door? A lot of candidates get wrapped around the axle on this. Oh my God, what's the right way? Sometimes there is no right way. A good candidate can justify, assuming you understand fire behavior, you understand building construction, you understand strategy and tactics, which you need to understand because that's the 3 core things of what we need and what's killing and injuring firefighters on the fire ground. But if you understand that stuff, a good candidate can justify any one of those mechanisms. I may not agree with your answer, but I can, if you justify it and sell me on it, okay, I can, as long as it's safe. Now, you may go, Steve, I've never been to fire college. I've never been to an academy. I don't understand fire behavior, building construction, strategy, tactics. Correct. One of the key things is that if a department does not require you to have specific training or education or experience, like they don't require fire education or they don't require an academy or they don't require EMT or they don't require experience, they cannot legally ask you questions. So they won't give you those types of questions. They'll give you more generic questions like we're talking about. But again, a question like this, you can find off the internet. You can definitely find off of visits to a firehouse. They may ask you, tell us about a mistake you've made and what you've learned from it. Again, a question you don't need any past experience on. That's why it's so critical to know everything about your past. Be able to talk about your past, all your past jobs, past school experiences, family experiences, maybe friend experiences. Be able to talk about yourself. And again, this is how you get to be unique, by being not the same, not having the oral board hear the same freaking answer from everybody. Why is teamwork important? Because hey, firefighting is a job career based on teamwork. Doesn't matter if you're a volunteer or career, just like professional sports, and not just professional, any type of sports is usually teamwork, except for golf, I guess. They may ask you, give us an example of when you've had to use teamwork in the past. So again, don't make excuses. Well, I never played sports. Who cares? There's got to be something in life that you've done to use teamwork. And if you can't think of anything, find something. Because again, this is what the job entails. They may ask you career goal questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years? Be honest. Because think about it. The fire chief that's hiring you today, he or she is looking at future fire chiefs, future assistant chiefs, deputy chiefs, division chiefs, battalion chiefs, captains. Most departments, if not all, prefer to hire and promote, promote from within, meaning when there's an engineer, a captain, a battalion chief, or any level of chief promotional position, we usually prefer to promote from within, but sometimes a lot of departments don't have quality candidates that meet the educational or training requirements or experience requirements. Some just don't want to get promoted. I get that. Some don't want to go higher than captain. I get it. Some don't want to go higher than BC, battalion chief. I get it. So sometimes departments have to go to the outside and hire people from other departments. There's great people out there that have left their department to go for other departments. So it happens. But also, a fire chief's also looking to not just hire firefighters, because if all we hire is just people that don't want to promote, what happens for our next promotional exam 5 years, 10 years down the road? That means we got to hire from the outside. I mean, that's, it can be done. It's not a bad thing. It's just, let's give hopefully opportunities. So again, if you're in it just to fight fire, save lives, you're probably not going to be happy. So a couple other common questions. What's the most appealing aspect of being a firefighter? Again, there's no wrong or right answer, but the best way to find out an answer to this question is by asking firefighters, what do you like about the job? What do you dislike about the job? Some of those answers. What is the least appealing aspect? Just like the opposite there. And again, talk to people, because you'll see some probably common answers from folks. And the way to handle this question is, when you get asked that question, is, well, here's the thing. You know, I'm not obviously working as a firefighter, but I've had a chance to do a number of different firehouse visits, talk to a variety of firefighters of different ranks, different, times, different levels of experience. And it seems like the most appealing aspect of being a firefighter is this. That's the common answer. And that I can see works for me as well too. You may have to have a question thrown at you of, describe a difficult decision you've had to make just in life. What were the circumstances? What was your decision? What would you do again? Or excuse me, would you do it again? Again, that's why it's so critical to take stock in your entire life and be able to have a lot of stories in your head, because personal stories help stand you apart. Personal stories, as long as they're not rambling, as long as they have a obvious starting point, ending point, an oral board likes that, because you want the oral board on the end of their seat watching you and staying engaged. So as we move forward, taking the time to prepare for, but more importantly, rehearse the most commonly asked interview questions will pay off big time to help you prepare. So in the next episode, number 42, we're going to discuss some more commonly asked questions. So these are not all the questions. You may get asked some of these or none of these, but they're very common questions. As always, thank you very much for the gift of your time. My contact info, contact info, social media footprint. Look forward to hopefully reaching out, having you reach out to me, and hopefully being able to connect in some capacity. But good luck, take care, be safe, and we'll catch you on the next episode.